Hola.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today, especially today when Madrid is so hot. It's really hard to get to Gran Via Street in this time that we're going to spend together. What I can really guarantee is that we're going to have to be cool, we're going to have a nice time, and if we learn something about immersive realities, that's just the only to top it all. I want to remind everyone the hashtag for the festival, which is hashtag XRFest. And for the people watching this through streaming and people here in the room, you can send your questions using this hashtag. And I will get these questions for later when we are in the panel. We're going to leave the floor to Mr. Forrester. Please come join me here. Ian is part of the team in R&D in London's BBC. He lives a few years ahead of us. That's what he says in his bio. And I'm coming from the future. I'll leave the floor to Mr. Forrester.
Just unlock my machine. It's always that awkward moment. Okay, all right. So there we go. Okay, so I'm going to talk pretty quickly. And unfortunately, I don't speak Spanish. I'm really sorry. So it is in English, as I think you just said. Okay, so yeah, I work for BBC R&D in the UK. I'm actually, there's two labs. There's one in Manchester and there's one in London. I'm in the Manchester lab. So if you go to Manchester, then I would highly recommend coming. Okay, so, and that's, okay, now, great. So part of my role is to rethink storytelling in this, in this century, and like rethink about how we do that. And the key thing about it is that I do it for R&D, so I have a look at it from a kind of public service point of view because we're the BBC. So I'm going to talk really quickly now. So I work for R&D, FXT, Future Experiences and Technology, and Tony Hall, this is the Director General of the BBC, has tasked us with new ways to captivate audiences, the storytelling in VR. This is 2016, so it also would apply to XR as well right now. So we do lots of experiences in the BBC, including some of these that you might have heard of. Some of these are great. Also, some of our latest experiences. I'm going to talk a little bit more beyond that because I believe, and I think my colleagues also believe, that media has so much more potential than what we're currently seeing with VR and kind of AR. So we've got this focus in R&D around this thing called object-based media, which I can talk all about. And if you come to my session tomorrow, you can hear all about. But the crux of it is that it's about breaking the media into these little pieces and then reassembling it. So I think about it as media like Lego bricks. And so you've got this massive pool of Lego bricks. It's like your footage for your videos. And then you wrap it up in metadata. That metadata describes, to a machine or to others and to maybe your user what is actually this piece of clip is about or what this object is about. And then if you put them all together, you can start to make other stories. So you can imagine the same clip could be used to tell part of a kind of a documentary about climate change, but you can also take that same clip and use it for something else. And it's using that kind of technique is quite powerful, and we've seen some real benefits for production and for audiences. But the important thing is that you don't need to know too much about that. Is actually, this is a new medium and there are new rules, and there are definitely new rules. And so what we started to do is we started to look back at storytelling, and what we've realized is that actually, rather than kind of try and adapt broadcast to this new medium, we're going way back. So way past broadcasting, way past the written word, to this thing we used to call oral storytelling, like this. So how many of you, hands up, if you've come across the kind of campfire storytelling, someone's telling a story at a fire and trying to scare you with a ghost story? A few? Okay, there you go. So you all know what I mean. The person who's a storyteller is adapting the story in real time. They're actually doing more than that. They're actually creating this immersive and engaging and participatory, even though you're not actually participating in it. You are actually, just the fact you're there affects the story, and they're adapting it in real time. This is what the human brain is so good at, and we've kind of forgotten this when we started doing broadcast and the written word. So I do believe that immersive media is for more than one person. So what about audiences? What about the shared experience? So some of the experiments I've done in the past, I've always started to go, this is very much personalized for a person. Maybe there's a way of doing this for multiple people. Now there's always this kind of like thing, this picture. I've never seen this experience ever, except for in pictures, of people sitting around a TV or a radio watching the same thing, listening to the same thing. No one's got a mobile phone in their hands, but there's kind of this thing that people harper back to. But also, if you look at VR, right? VR, he's probably having an amazing time, but I can't see what he's doing, and it's great. We see this all the time. People are in VR, and everyone's looking, going, "Oh, okay, that looks great," but I can't experience that, And it gets really bad, people looking at each other, but actually not looking at each other. And I believe that media has so much more potential, because this is awful, and I think we can do better than this. So I think some of our lessons come from immersive media, immersive theatre, sorry. I think that some of the immersive theatre stuff actually is really important, because actually it was engaging, it's adaptive, it's participatory, and it's immersive. Okay, there's some amazing things that happen in immersive theatre, and the reason why is that people really have a great time, and they talk about it, but you need to be there to actually experience it. And there's a way of doing that which is not you have to go to a certain place. We can do this over the internet. So immersive media beyond visual and audio. I also, and my colleagues at R&D also believe that we've got so stuck in the idea that it has to be better video, better audio, that's it. There's more than that. We have more than two senses, and we're not even exploring some of those. But we are in R&D, so we're looking at touch and haptics. So, if you think about, look, I'm holding a microphone, I'm holding this at the same time. Our hands are amazing. The things that we can do with our hands are incredible. When you're in these kind of XR experiences, you're literally just kind of looking around, holding a controller, and there's more that can be done. So if you've played with some of the Nintendo stuff, it's really powerful how it feels like there's multiple balls in this controller, but there isn't, obviously. And there's other feedback systems as well. But they're getting better. So now there's things where it fires bits of air at you, and it's very precise, so it can actually pick out your fingers. And that's really powerful. And that's some of the stuff that we're exploring as well. So actually Leap Motion have just teamed up with Ultra Haptics to do some of this stuff. Also, there's some interesting stuff that's coming out of Sony, where they're starting to put these kind of sensors on your muscles, and they're able to control your muscles a little bit. So you can do stuff like drop a pen, and there's someone else, you're kind of wired up to someone else's set, and then you can always pick it up at the same time. I can talk about it all day. It's really fascinating stuff. Also, we've been playing with this stuff for quite a while. So we've got this thing where it's like a blood monitor, blood cough monitor. So it will pump up and increase the intensity. So we have a thing where a snake goes around your arm. So we have that, but it's obviously a load of like airbags that pump up. But with the media, and when you're looking at the screen, it feels like the snake is actually wrapping itself around your arm, and it's really powerful. Smell is one of those things that people laugh about, and it is pretty laughable because smell-o-vision is awful, and it's not got much better. Right now this is kind of like the state of the art, and it's awful, right? Scratch, you're kind of like watching this thing, this movie, and then you kind of like then have to scratch off this thing to smell it. No. The weird thing is that actually sense in marketing has come a long way. And we all know that kind of new car smell. We also know that kind of new home smell. It just is a certain smell, and it starts to invoke memories. The reason why is because the smell, your nose is directly wired straight into your brain. The smell is a really powerful way to get stuff straight into people's memories. It bypasses a lot of the stuff that the visual and what the hearing has to go through. So it's something to think about. And actually, the fragrance boxes are getting really good. So you can actually start to control some of this better. Taste. Another weird one. And everyone loves taste. But no one wants to put something in their mouth. The weird thing about taste is actually, and this is the different taste things that we have, is that most of it actually comes from smell. So it's really powerful to focus on the smell and then less on the taste right now. This is some of the stuff that we're also exploring in small degrees. It's also important to think that space defines the experience. Something to really think about. This space that we're in right now is very different from a classroom. It feels quite epic in this space. And to be fair, I didn't listen to Catherine. I think she was here yesterday. She understands this, and other people are starting to understand this. So, that's great, Ian. Let's talk about the living room of the future. This is some of the work that we're actually doing right now. So we took we looked across the whole lot of this and decided that the Internet of Things is where we can start to have the ability to touch things and to see things and to interact with things more than just on a screen. So we built this radio in 2013 before, I think just around the same time as Alexa. And it's a physical radio. It plays back object-based media content, but it has sensors on it. So it knows how close you are. It knows how light it is. It is also connected to the Wi-Fi, so it knows, what's going on your network, for example. And it's quite an interesting thing because you can do things with that data in that box. What we realized is actually, this is actually your phone. And the phone has so much more sensors than that radio ever had. A lot more. The average phone now has about 14 different sensors. So we started looking and thinking, what if we could create an application which was like the perceptive radio, but was on your phone, and a re-event podcasting? Well, if you're interested, I highly recommend you sign up to my workshop tomorrow at 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock? Yes. Cool. So, let's go back to living room. Fully immersive experiences. Imagine all these devices in this room right now, they're all connected. They're on the same wireless network, yeah? And they can all talk to each other. And if you start to include, it's a bit of sounds. Is there sounds? Oh, there you go. So this is an early experiment we did.
Never seen one piece of 20-foot technology and more photos.
So what you're seeing is there's a toy Dalek, and it wakes up when a Dalek on the screen comes on. So it just sits there as a toy until that comes on. And it's that kind of thing that's quite powerful. We did this with kids, and they absolutely loved it. And they were asking, when's this going to actually be a thing? As an R&D department, we only experiment with things, but who knows? Maybe someone might do something with that. But what we found also is that it can be quite creepy. You're sitting there, and there's Daleks running across the floor. Suddenly, it's quite creepy because data in your living room can be quite creepy if you don't know what's going on. So, with Living Room of the Future, our focus was more about data and the use of data, but I can talk much more about that tomorrow. We did it, funny enough, with the British Council and all these other universities. So thank you very much, British Council, for having me here. And I'll show you an example of what it's like.
What do you see? People and things moving through space. A moving world stilled forever. Something below this human surface. The constant vibration of reality. Outside of our reflection. What is it? A human movement in the shadow of chaos. Constructed out of chaos. A structure built out of the unknown.
So when you go into this space, into this actual made space, everything around you, the seat you're sitting on, the screen you're watching, everything is connected. And the possibilities for storytelling are immense. We worked with the British Council. Just go flick through. This is kind of what it looks like. This is one, in fact. This is kind of what it looks like, your general view. So there's like a fan, there's water bottles, there's a screen on the desk which shows you what data is being used and how it's being used, as well as a massive TV. And even the clock radio is connected alongside with all the lights and stuff. So we just quickly run through it again.
What you're going to experience when you first enter into the living room of the future is it will probably be in the first instance quite familiar. There's a screen, there's a tablet, there's a fan, there's sofas. But what's going on underneath is some really interesting stuff.
If you interact with one of the smart objects, has an influence on the film. So for example, one of them is the water, which has NFC at the bottom of the bottle. So when you pick up the bottle, it knows that you picked up the bottle. So, yeah, I hate hearing myself talk. But yeah, even when you sit down on the sofa, it knows that how many people have sat down. It also knows how heavy you are. And this is the kind of thing that you don't necessarily want to share with the rest of the living room. And this is where the data ethics stuff comes. So we also printed out a receipt as well, which was nice for you to take away, to give you a little insight into what else was being shared and collected. So this is where we did it in fact in Liverpool. We also did it in the V&A in London and the Tate Modern in London. And we also went to Skopje, thanks to the British Council again, where we built the living room and showed it off. And it was well attended. And it is on permanent display. If you ever get to Watford, near London, then it is on permanent display, a slightly different version with a handprint and stuff like that. But it is the same system. And if you're interested how it was created, this is how it's created. This probably means nothing to anyone, but if you come to my session tomorrow, then you can learn all about it, and we get to workshop how to create your own living room of the future. And if you're interested in anything I've said, please get in touch. My email address will be afterwards. Also, we have a community called storytellers.link where you can join other people who are interested in this. And that's it for me. Thank you very much. I hope that was about 20 minutes.
It's great. Thank you so much. Podéis aprovechar si tenéis alguna pregunta para Ian.
You can take the opportunity. If you have any questions for Ian, this is the right time to ask them.
Sí. Eva.
Oh,
No.
okay.
Thank you so much for this glimpse into your work. How do you work to tackle all the ethical issues and the problems of manipulation that bring all these fantastic technologies?
Yeah, so one of the things that so obviously as a R&D department, we're researching this stuff. And one of the decisions that we made very early on with the living room is that everything that happens in the living room stays in the living room. There's no kind of cloud link. There's nothing shared with Google. So, for example, you'll notice people asked us, why is there no Alexa? Why is there no Google Home? I said, well, you can't, because if you put those in the home, in that living room, then suddenly it has to go to somewhere else, gets shared with them, then sent back to us. That can't happen. Everything in that room all talk to each other and not to the cloud. And that's really powerful, and that's really important for us. So that's us starting to do this. There's also other stuff that I can talk about. Like if you look for BBC Box, you'll find a whole bunch of stuff that we've just released this week around this. Okay? Other questions?
Nada. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Ian.
Okay.
Please take a place. Ah,
Else.
adelante.
Wait for the mic.
Buenos días.
Good afternoon. My question is about safety. Wi-Fi is always broadcasting and outside any limitations. So what types of security systems can ensure that those boundaries are not going beyond those walls, or that nobody is going to get into this system, because this is one of the least trustworthy systems that we have?
Okay, so I just translated in my head. Okay. Okay, so I think I understood it as you're worried about Wi-Fi and like radio signals outside. So some of this stuff is obviously, a lot of this stuff is encrypted, which protects it. But we're also doing research around ways to do much more closer connections. So, for example, the fact that the water bottle is on top of those mats is NFC. That's the same technology as you use to tap your credit card on a reader. It's very small. You can't get that from somewhere completely outside the living room. So there's stuff like that we've focused on, and those are design decisions that are important. The actual data, so for example, the fact that 4 people are sat down on your sofa instead of 2, is all being stored in a thing called data box, or what we call the BBC box, and that is in your home under your complete control. It's not somewhere in the cloud. It's not somewhere, in Google's cloud or in Facebook's cloud. You can choose if you want to share that data with Facebook or Google, whoever you want, but that's a decision that you make. And I think that's the important difference of some of the stuff that we're doing. If you're interested in the data ethics of this, please come to my workshop tomorrow, because we will explore this in full detail. Okay?
Mira, hay otra pregunta allí.
Did I answer your question, by the way? I got part of your question. I didn't get it all. Okay.
Enhorabuena por...
Congratulations for your presentation. You started mentioning that you were living in the future, that you're a few years ahead of the present. And personally, I got to know virtual reality 25 years ago. So what we used to talk about was the haptic senses, the taste, and all these things. And about the living room that you've mentioned, I would like you to tell us about the algorithms or the artificial intelligence that you are using for this, and what projects you have in mind regarding the broadcasting, the virtual reality, augmented reality, extended reality, and also artificial intelligence.
Okay. Right. Okay. That's a lot there. Okay, so the algorithms that we're using in the living room are very simple. They're not complicated. It's not so. I also make a distinction between AI and machine learning. We're not even doing machine learning on this stuff. We're doing very simple. Someone sat down on the sofa. Now start. Now listen for these devices. When this happens, change that. It's very much more kind of early day, if they said that, okay? I also, like you, I've seen I actually did a project in 1999 around VR, around virtual reality markup language. And I think what you're starting to see is that a lot of the ideas back then, and a lot of the ideas that we've had in the past around haptics, are now possible because the technology is now caught up. I think that's the difference now. Rather than before, it was very difficult. It required like a big machine, lots of work, and now these things are really, really simple, very small. So, for example, the idea you can actually trigger a little air puff that's small enough to like touch your fingertip is like something quite powerful. And then they'll make it so cheap that it'll be just built into your phone, for example. And I think that's the difference now than before. Does that answer your question? Sorry. Somewhat. Okay. Any other questions or? No, I think we're done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
De todas formas, como Ian ha dicho,
like Ian has said several times, tomorrow he is delivering a workshop. I think there are very few tickets still left, but if you're interested, please let us know, and we will make it possible for you to join us in the workshop tomorrow. Well, before I introduce the members of this panel, I would like to make a reflection. Edgar Dale, United States teacher, expert in teaching, said that people only remember 20% of what they hear, 30% of what they read, and 90% of what they experiment. And virtual reality and these sorts of technologies can help us in education without having to leave our living room. And I'm going to be joined on the stage by Pedro Lozano, Marjorie Netange, and Carlos Ochoa and Gonzalo Ruiz Pérez.
No. Sorry. Ian, can you... No dudes en interrumpirnos y en
Please do not hesitate to interrupt and participate anytime you wish. Thank you. Hello, we're here. I'm going to start with Peter, because as I was looking for information to prepare this panel, I found this headline: the Spanish people who revolutionized the educational system in the United States, which is quite big. Can you tell us a bit about it? Well, I think the headline really exceeds the expectations. But we are a company specialized in immersive technologies based in Zaragoza. We started working in 2010. We have not been in the field for 25 years, as Ian has mentioned, but we started in a very at the very beginning of the emergence of these technologies, and we are a technological agency developing, innovating experiences for education and marketing areas through entertainment. We started in the marketing world because these technologies offer these on-the-go experiences, wow experiences, and they had a particular spot in the marketing field, but we also saw some potential in the educational sector, where we launched a product called Crombill, and our company is Imascono. And Crombill was a total success that we launched at an international level because it gathered the manual development and the development of new technologies, in particular augmented reality. And it's true that technologies are having a big space in the educational system, but we are leaving aside the traditional branch. So we wanted to put together these two worlds, the offline and the virtual world, and the application was a great success at an international level. We have come above the 1 million downloads, most of those from the United States, and this makes us very proud. But what really makes us proud is that teachers come to us, contact us, because they want to thank us, because we're supporting them in helping children learn and enjoy themselves, which is our focus, our goal, that children through gaming could develop their creativity and they would learn as well, and that change from what they see at home and what they see in the classroom. There was a very big gap between these two worlds, and with this application I think we really have made this two worlds connect. I suppose many of you know this. You can use this app to add some sheets so that children can use them to draw in their telephones. Marjorie works at the Reina Sofia School for Higher Studies in Music, and they have a wonderful project to teach children music, and we have a wonderful video that summarizes their project. Enjoy music from the stage and in a 360 degrees mode. This project is about recording in a virtual reality format a classical music concert to be used in schools. Our goal with this project, Music In, was to initiate children in the music world in a more innovative fashion. When you create this interest in music in children, you can actually develop a habit. These virtual reality headsets allow children to move around the stage, get close to the instruments, see what is playing in the different instruments. And we introduce the music work. We give them details that might be attractive to children. For instance, this girl is saying that the sound comes through this little piece that sounds a bit like a duck. I like very much the way they explained the instruments to us. They told us that an instrument had the shape of a snail. This instrument mixes very well with wood instruments, for instance. I think this idea is very good because not all of us have the possibility of going to a real concert, and some schools have not the necessary resources, and it's very interesting to have someone come over to our center and show us about music, considering the importance of music in life. This connects music and the youth through a virtual reality. They love the headsets. The experience was extremely good, and I really want to go to a real concert. That was wonderful. tell us why. How does this project come to life? Well, our center is a training center to train professional musicians, classical musicians, but our goal is also to bring classical music to society, to be more present, because we think that classical music is sometimes considered as a boring type of music or for older people, and the teaching of music in schools is very limited in terms of the definition of the curricular activities and also the time it is allotted to music in schools. Technology, and in particular virtual reality technology, can play a very important role. 2 months back, a scientific study was published from a research team from Denmark and Italy who ran some tests in schools and classrooms with 10-year-olds, combining traditional ways of teaching music and the virtual reality headsets work. They had very specific goals to recognize the different instruments, to differentiate the music genres and where the instruments are placed on stage. And when they compared the two methods, they realized that virtual reality improved considerably the learning among children. So the project that we just saw in the video for us fulfills this goal to really fill up our music centers. When you start teaching music to children at their educational centers, and this project came from a group of students. We have a project in the school regarding innovation, related to innovation, and we give the possibility to our young musicians to develop an innovation project. We give them some budget, some funding, and we provide them with a coach throughout the years that allows them to create anything. Many of our students are interested in technology because they know that this is a vehicle that can bring more audiences to the concert halls. So we had 3 different instrument players. They worked with different specialized companies because we do not have internally your technical knowledge. So they worked with True Lively and with Vision, 2 companies based in Barcelona, and they developed this recording project and they edited all the context and they took it to a neighborhood that was less favored neighborhood where probably most of the children had not had the chance to access to direct live music. So they're experiencing the being among the musicians. We hope that has really caused an impact in them, and we want to replicate this initiative. So as you said, you can see the results in the children. They're learning music more easily. In our project, it didn't last too long because we created this material and we just visited one school, the San Antonio school in Cuatro Caminos, and several lessons were given to children up to 7 years old. We haven't been able to replicate this experience mainly due to budget issues because we need to rent the headsets again. We do not have the equipment internally, and schools do not have this equipment either. So we do have the contents, but we do lack the material. Well, we will discuss the budget later, and I'm sure that Carlos has a lot to offer regarding this. Carlos is not only the founder and CEO of One Digital Consulting, but he's also the president of the Association of Virtual Reality and Augmented Reality in Madrid and co-chairman of the Committee of VR Education. He has also authored the white paper on virtual reality in education, and we could leave him here alone on the stage and he would have things to tell you all afternoon, and he can discuss many practical cases with you. But can you tell us a little bit about how you got to this white paper? Well, first of all, I want to congratulate the team and the Jurassic Park team. I also belong to Jurassic Park, and it's very endearing, this session today, because I have found many people from Jurassic Park, and I want to say this because I'm really moved by this. when hipsters and millennials are discussing now about how things are right now, I have to tell you that my first experience with virtual reality was seeing George Lucas's studios, and you could see movies with Bacoso where you could see avatars, and they were already talking about virtual reality in a very impressive manner. And nowadays I'm living my fourth youth. I have an advanced age. I could even retire, but right now I think we are right at the best wave of these technologies. The first wave was related to invention. The second wave was about the people who were working hard to try and develop something that made sense. If you look up in YouTube virtual reality, BBC and ABC in 1980 or 1990s, you can see the same videos with which we are closing the news programs nowadays. The technology has not changed much. The concepts are still the same, but we are in the fourth era where technological convergence are bringing a lot of value. I refuse to talk about immersive technology or virtual reality. We are talking about a convergence. We are talking about immersion. All our five senses are involved. I have just become a grandparent, and my grandson is starting to touch things. That's the first thing babies do before even they can see anything. This is our first sense, and in these technologies we see that we are starting to touch things as well. Every time we see a new wave coming up, the problem is how we can launch the message so that the things that we are working on make sense. That is to say, how can we set the rules, the patterns, the methodologies? How can we put all together what we want to do with technology, and especially what for? But also we need to train the trainers. If we do not train the trainers, and what teachers or what trainers are we talking about, we will be making a very bad mistake. And the last wave will be the one that will be like a tsunami if we do not take care of all these aspects. The association that we call VARA, it's about over 20,000 professionals dealing with technologies, and I co-chair the education committee that has as a goal to prepare a white paper to help schools and teachers and those making the decision makers understand technology so that they could make sense out of it. But how? Are we going to train people in virtual reality? Are we going to teach them how to use headsets in order to train someone? What is the concept of virtual reality? Is this horizontal? Is this vertical? So we needed to analyze the profile of the trainers. Are these soft skills, or what other skills do they need? We're trying to train people who do not have the necessary background in order to teach their students. Sometimes people are focused in the students, but I disagree. What you need to do is educate first, and then develop, and finally train. But the debates that are ongoing within the association regarding the definition of education, training, and how to create some curriculum that can be used in all educational centers, adding value. And it's not just the means, the cardboard headsets that the children are handling. And forgive me, because education is my main thing, and I get too passionate about it. We have here also Gonzalo Riperez, who has developed several projects related to education, and also sometimes to schools, but also to companies. That's true. We started with the virtual networks not so long ago, but yeah, a few years back, from the very beginning of this new era where we had the first DK2, and what was before development study focus on CGI, we turned it around, we bet on virtual reality, and from the very beginning one of the things that came about was to use it for training and education. We come from Murcia, and with this foundation called Integra that requested us to make a project to teach children about history. So for a week they study the lesson, and then they go to a special center, and then they practice and experience their knowledge. We have tested this for 2 years in over 30 schools, and the success is wonderful. Students are looking forward to get to that point because we also set them a competitive aspect to this, and they want to go and win. But there's also this side of what we do related to training adults. The main part of the main sector that needs virtual reality, because it has shown to be useful, is the industrial training. It's much easier, much cheaper to train someone to do something difficult through virtual reality than taking them to a faraway place or any dangerous situation. For instance, with Repsol, we started working on the Y experiences with them. We started this 4 years back, and they told us that they wanted this, but they wanted us to do something useful. And we created this safety guidelines, and the students, the professionals in Repsol had to go through this training, and they're tested on their knowledge. And after that, we are training. We have the whole flow of training for a driver in Repsol. Those are the drivers who drive the trucks that carry the fuel, and we have the full training from the beginning. When they load the trucks, they carry the fuel, and they deliver it to the last spot. And they're fully using virtual reality to train them and test their knowledge as well. So this is not just a thing that is nice or looks nice, but it's also something that they're really using, that it's practical, that people retain information much better than if they just learn it by heart. Yesterday we were talking, Roberto Romero made a reflection about clients who came to him telling him that they wanted to do something in virtual reality. And he said, no, what do you need to say? What do you have to say? So I was thinking, what exercise do we need to do to teach people that they need to overpass technology and just use it just because it's there and decide what they want to tell? In our case, we have worked with this big company, and we have gone through that process with them already. So now clients come to us to ask something very specific. We can display everything that we are doing or that we have done, and we can show new clients the things that we're doing, and we ask them, is this really going to be useful for you? Can you really profit from this technology? And we can try and find something that really suits each client. But every time that a client can come and ask you for something, and then you teach them somewhat what they can use. Have you ever rejected any project? Because yes, of course, not only one, several projects that we have rejected, because sometimes people have expectations that are very far from reality. Maybe they expect to talk with a character or touch a character, and we explain to them, yes, well, you can do this up to a certain point, and we have to explain to them that this is not a video game that they can play in their house. You need to explain things to people who are not very knowledgeable in this field. They expect something really outside the boundaries of what can be done right now. We are on the way of developing these things.
Vuelvo, sí, adelante.
Yeah, plus, I like to say that sometimes the problem is that we think that technology is a goal, but technology is a means, and sometimes you need to make the customer aware of that, and you need to explain that concept, because with the boom of the technologies, everybody wants to join all this world, and sometimes these technologies do not solve their problem. So it's very important to make people aware of that, and it's an initial discussion. Like, for example, well, Pokemon Go, that everybody was haunted Pokemons on the street. So we need to be aware of the fact that technology is not a goal, it's a means. And as a company, we used to be developers, and now we have been developing that consultant stage where we help customers. Okay, so customer education, that's it, to make them know what they want and to know what they need. I'd like to go one step further, because really, as we are applying some technologies, well, from our point of view, at some contexts, it's contradictory compared with what we want to do. Let me explain myself. If this is a regular classroom, I can't create a VR lab, giving goggles to everybody on a chair that I can't move, where you can't rotate, you can't interact, etc. So this means that it is a disruptive element that changes the paradigm of the physical space of the classroom by definition. If you don't change the physical space, there's no immersion in the elementary basic concept, I mean. But on top of that, thinking of a project-oriented approach, because we want to solve real problems with some technologies, I need to create a creative space. And the creative space is not the classroom with the tables, with the chairs, and everybody with the goggles on, looking we don't know where. Because this is the regular snapshot that we can see in books. But as years go by, we use technologies, and it's the evolution from the blackboard to the chalk, to the tablet, and to the goggles. And it's not the case. So it is a disruptive element. And in order to be a disruptive element, it has to be at a specific context. So this is, I have a specific problem. The teacher has his group of students. He establishes a problem. There's a 3D printer. There's a technology, a system that has to be explained. We need to think in 3D, because if we do not think in 3D, we need to think as we see. The world that's around us is 3D. If I do not think 3D and I have these concepts, I won't understand anything. So this is to use technology just to use it. So I feel passion for art, for example, and this is an immersive technology because the paradigm has changed. The music band is not here, so it's around the observer. So the observer is trapped by the band because the band is playing for him or her. So this is really an empathic effect of a real immersive experience, I think. Well, to me, it's really eye-catching that you have customers that ask you for technology just to have it, when we, from the cultural and education institutions, have the need. Well, we'll see the final goal, and we don't have the technology. So it is two opposite worlds, so to speak. And well, fortunately, we have people to give advice to these customers. That's good. So students, more or less young, or millennials. Well, millennials are not that young. Well, Z generation. They are highly accustomed to smartphones and connections, etc. So, up to what extent VR will be surprising for them, or it will be attractive enough for them to say, well, I'm interested in that. And on the other hand, if they're interested in it, how can we skip the wow effect? The wow is, okay, wow is great, but what happens with the background content? I mean, how this generation will be surprised that, that I've seen all AV contents, etc. How do you see this? Well, you're right when you say that it's a very serious problem. People that want to, well, you want to surprise people, but you want people to pay attention to what you're showing. But this is a temporary effect. This is something that will happen for 4 or 5 years, when the only important thing will be content. when they have VR at home, for example, it's a wow experience, and the first one that shows something will get that wow effect. But after that, the content will be studied, the content will be developed, so the content will be set, and it will be, well deployed. So there's a satisfaction pyramid of the human being elements. This is what traps you in life when you interact with something. Doesn't matter whether it's a movie, a book, or whatever. When you create a content and you speak about storytelling, you forget about the fundamentals to have a real immersion perception. This is to lie or to cheat on your brain so that you can enjoy what you are seeing. So the Dale's cone, for example, works without goggles. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, perfectly. And with goggles, it can work even worse. Because I can't get to the top because I'm not telling anything that makes value. So the theories on the top always work, but you need to get to the top. And the content companies know that creating a quality content is really expensive. Why? Because the profile, when you're going to build your movie, your content movie, goes through screenwriters, programmers, designers, testers, etc. So the fact of creating a digital content only for content, digital content for a school, and applying it, applying all the immersive technology, it could be, we could need 15 profiles. This is what we used to need when we created digital objects for red.es. And I just want to highlight something that has been tackled about media. In the world of digital contents, we've forgotten that Spain has been one of the pioneer countries in creating and defining the digital object. It what used to be the reusable digital object. It's an object that can be a video, a game, or whatever, that in a context, it's called a sequence. And that sequence has the value of a digital content that is traceable and accessible. We're not using that in VR. And Spain has a platform that is called Agrega, where we have hundreds of thousands of digital contents that are video games for free for everybody. And some people are shaking their heads, and just for reference, because there's a British friend here. In year 2001, 2002, the Ministry of Industry and Ministry of Education in Spain started to develop the concept of digital content so that it could be usable in 5 languages. Content in 5 languages, both audible and visual, and visual. So hundreds of thousands of contents were developed in Spain. The British government copied that model, and that model was extrapolated. I'm a personal friend of the person who did that. So the budget was 400 times the Spanish budget. So the contents are on the net, and teachers do not even know that these contents exist. So when you create a content, it has to be reusable, because when you see the statistics of the VR development, there's still a gap of 80% hardware and 20% software. But the software is the most expensive thing. So how much are we paying to a designer or a programmer or to an author? An author. This is the nitty-gritty from my point of view. You want to say something? Yeah. I think that wow effect of technology, well, it's true that, for example, the project that we developed, we saw that when we went to school. That wow was because of the goggles. It doesn't matter whether the content is archaeology, music, science. Students didn't care about that. And in some years, it will change. Because we will all have goggles at home. It will be something very usual. So the challenge is at the content. So we developed that small format with 5 musicians, but there are experiences that have been developed, for example, in LA, at a classical music level. That, well, for example, the great orchestra conductor Gustavo Dudamel made that experience. So they recorded with 40 mics around the orchestra, 14 cameras, and they set a piece of music that was taken with a bus that was called the Beethoven bus that was around the LA city, and people could jump the bus with the goggles and the headsets, and they could live the concert as if they were among the musicians, with some animations that let them know what instrument was playing at that time, and to have the point of view from the conductor. And this is something that that we can't do in reality. So when technology is something usual for everybody, we will keep innovating in contents, I think. I think that this change goes beyond technology. Well, technology has helped us realize and understand that we really are living a brutal change. We are speaking about digital transformation, but what we are facing is a social transformation that is supported by technology as a means. And as Oscar was saying, that paradigm that is being broken with education, and it has to integrate new technologies. As we were in Cromwell, for example, we were based on education trends like Howard Gardner with multiple intelligences, and our initial goal was to focus on discovering what's children's passion, and from there on to make them develop professionally, because technology will capture them for 5 years, but it will be something repetitive. So I think that we have to dive in education in order to break that paradigm. No, Carlos, sorry, not Oscar. Yeah, to break that industrial education that is what we are living right now. And in this case, we could hold the discussion of how private schools are developing more than state schools, and we are creating a bigger gap because they are evolving faster, so they can integrate devices in classrooms, etc., and teachers that are ready for this new revolution that is to come. The budget is something that I wanted to tackle because of that. Carlos was speaking about the expenditures just for the content, devices. We need to set the classroom. We need to train the teachers. Because just imagine 30 students, each with his or her goggles. It's not the mechanic cues, but about push that button and push here. No, they are integrating that digital speech, and they have to believe in that for their educational purposes. So when we train teachers, I think that the goal is not that the content becomes a digital stuff. It's just another tool that completes the program. So it is where the teacher has to work in terms of methodology, how to use technology just at specific cases, but the rest of, the methodology will be, the rest of the methodology, will be more traditional. So we get the first question from the media. It's Nuria that asks us, well, she has not been able to attend today's session, but she would love to hear about the approach for AR and VR for educating old people or elderly people that are not very comfortable using technology devices. How can we help our elderly people? Well, as I'm a little bit old, this is something that I'm asked quite often. So, in this country, I have to say this, some years ago, there was an attempt of conducting a great modernization. And we followed the rules coming from the European Commission at strategic sectors to digitize the country. I'm speaking about the plan Avanza 2010-2011. And we are speaking about contents that by then were the 5 strategic lines of the European Commission. Education, schools, heritage in Spain. Many of the contents in Spain have to do with heritage. And one of the great problems was the digital gap of old people. Or elderly people. By then, we developed a platform for land digital TV that was never successful, and we tried to get elderly people involved with tools that are absolutely usable in immersive environments, so that they could empathize, they could make journeys through videos, of course, but to make them be alive in that platform, and with just a remote control they could interact with that context. For that, we had some teams of experts. We got into some some old people's centers, etc. And we recorded all the sessions to have a feedback of what was going on there. And that helped us improve contents and activities. So, well, I guess that you're familiar with that because this is what we are doing with VR. We try to do it with digital TV. How many goggles we have to use? Well, this is my passion. So I really enjoy when you see an elderly person with the goggles and everybody around is living live with a great passion what that person's living, and they collaborate, they participate. This is called managing resources in an efficient way and create empathy. And from there on, what we can do is absolutely spectacular because they are highly receptive. For example, if I say, well, you have the goggles, I take them away, and today I'm going to record the movie, but tomorrow I can't do it because we can't do it for budget reasons, they do not hold with that. We shouldn't play either with children or with elderly people because we are playing with our heritage, with our value. And one of the things that I don't like, and that's really very harmful to this immersive technologies, is the banalization of technology as it is. We are recording somebody with the hands when there's no haptic system. So they are using cardboard glasses when they're not watching anything. So this is part of our job, to create a good culture. And this is what we deal with at the Good Practice book. So when will this book published? Yeah, but well, the second edition, where we are making a second review because this one's in English, and we are contributing to the digital gap. Why? Because, well, not everybody speaks English, and there's a Latin market or Spanish market that is really big. So I'm writing a second edition that will be around 200 pages, where we have glossaries, where we have use cases, where there are references, where there are pilot projects, where there are tools to design your physical space, recommendations, and assessments in terms of platforms, free platforms in the market, so that we can start working. And it will be ready by October. We will present it at Teachers Congress, just teachers for them to assess it. So I would like to add that in our case, as I was saying at the beginning, we came from entertainment and marketing world. And well, amusement and games, we all love them. We want to have fun, and this is what we get through these technologies. We are able to have the kid that we have inside of all of us. So in this case, we have success stories in a training area where, for example, you find more traditional companies where the executive directors are older, and it seems that they are more reluctant to changes. But it is what we were saying. This is a cultural change, and this is the most important thing. And the success stories are also key to sell projects. Previously was very complex because we didn't have real data. And I would like to congratulate all the companies that bet on these technologies, because eventually they have helped us have objective data, and it is really working, and this helps you convince the people that comes after, and we are seeing how it is transforming any type of training and education at every ages. Yeah, well, I would like to put an example of how powerful this technology and experiences are. People they don't have to be elderly people, but people that have a great digital gap. We tested the experience by Repsol of unloading a truck, and I saw that 60-year people about to retire that had never touched a VR goggles. Yeah, no offense, but for example, they were not very good at technologies, and the idea, well, they just wanted to take the hands and to put the goggles on, but as if they just to put that on, and they understood it perfectly. And in 5 minutes' time, they were faster, and they did not make any mistakes. So it was spectacular. They said, well, this is easier than reality. And it's really amazing. I mean, this technology works. So this is how powerful this VR is. So that, well, it can be very helpful for people. I've seen cases where we made an experience, we made a trial, at an institute with people that had some physical impairments and that were moving parts of the body that they didn't move by VR. They were crying. They said, well, I could never move my hand. And this is how powerful immersion is. And if the content's good, immersion is full.
¿Cómo podemos combatir la infoxicación que tenemos ahora?
How can we fight infoxication, all these images that we are seeing? We have an attention deficit because we see them, but we do not see them. I guess that in all your projects, that's maybe that's a problem. The good thing of VR, not in MR, but in VR, is that you control what the user is seeing. So the interesting thing is just at one place. It depends on the capability of the storytelling that you want to have to see if the rest of the elements are part of the story, but you are focusing the user's attention. Yeah, one of the responsibilities that we have is to help in this change. And in the case of Cromwell, the success that we have is that we codified manual development, and it's true that children are losing it because when they are 2 years old at home, there are nurseries that use this app with 2 years old, and when they have the tablet, they are using it. And in our case, the app makes children develop that manual skills, and after that they move to the digital skills where they interact with virtual content. So I think it's important that companies and developers can help with this transformation, because not everything's valid. And we're focused on the digital transformation speech, but it's a social transformation, and here we need to contribute in order to help with this change, in order to have a better world. I think that this is the ultimate goal that we all have. Yes, absolutely.
15 minutos.
We still have 10-15 minutes to go if you have any questions.
Si no,
Bueno,
mientras
lo que
yo
llega
sigo.
el micrófono.
Claro,
hablando
adelante,
sobre
adelante.
esto. ¿Y qué podemos hacer?
What can we do? We can teach and teach and teach, educate and educate at all levels, because you can see bad practices everywhere, but what we need to do is focus on education and see what are the values and the benefits that we are going to get. When it comes to technology, I don't know if I dare saying this, but multinationals are not really helping the educational institutions, because sometimes they give this project or this other educational project, but the educational system is given by the administration. Education is a system. To teach, to educate is a process, and to educate is to transform people. So when you give in to the companies and you hear them, you listen to them when they tell you this is my educational system, you need really to focus instead in the teacher and the educator. When you talk about embracing technology, okay, when we embrace each other, it's something that really makes you feel something. This is not just an easy translation from the term in English, embracing. It's because you are going to exchange something. But there's something aside that there's your educational system is not covering the needs of the labor market. I will give you a detail about UK. There's a report by DEST, which is the greatest educational congress or conference held at a worldwide level, and it's held in London every year, and it's also about technology. They have shown some statistical data about the impact of new technologies and virtual reality in education, in content, in the UK, and sometimes you can see that everything is going fine, and at some point you find that data about design thinking and new technologies, about what the market is requesting in training in the students, has really lowered in the past years. So the gap is going to increase. We're making companies demanding technicians are here, and the schools are on the other side. They're really lagging behind. This is not happening in Asia. And when I talk about Asia, you've been in Dubai, you know what it is. Dubai, at Dubai airport, when you look around, you are the only strange person there. You cannot see how many, you don't know all the colors that you can see. If you go to a congress there, you realize that all these processes that has taken you 40 years, they need to catch up in just 2 years. So you see this in India as well. The speed and acceleration are very important in this technology process. So we can be in the 4th wave, in the 5th wave. It doesn't really matter, because tomorrow in India, where almost all CEOs from the multinational companies come from India due to their mindsets and their culture, will already be there when we will still be discussing things. We are realizing that we are realizing here the digital gap, and it's not them, definitely. But please continue, Carlos. In 2010, we were at a real turn point. We have been to the United Arab Emirates selling our idea, and when we got there, they were really surprised. And you're competing with the United States, with the British publishers, but then you have also the Egyptians, you have the Romanians, you have the Russians developing things. The world is a wide place, and you're competing with everyone. But when we got to the Emirates, they allowed us to set up in 2015 our labs that incorporated all sorts of technologies for the public administration, not for private schools. What should we have done? We should have brought the teachers into that lab so that they could understand what they could do with the students. So they were extremely happy. Many pictures were taken, but the relationship between the cost and the impact did not really work out. The KPIs were not achieved. We didn't really know what the evolution was, and we didn't really know what the cost was regarding to the impact we were causing. Hello, thank you very much. My question starts with something personal that has brought me here. My dad is an engineer. He is a teacher in a technological university in Argentina, and 7-8 years ago he started working with virtual reality and augmented reality, and he's finding it really difficult to make people and train people and educated people understand what's going on. Obviously, we're dealing with different skills in Argentina and Spain, but I would like to know if there are any projections or forecasts in terms of timing, where we can think of people having this technology closer to them, to bring this technology at home. I think this has to do with what you were saying before, Gonzalo, the gap between the makers. Well, you're talking about when we think this is going to become massively used technology. I think that this year really represented a big leap towards a massive network with the all sorts of devices like Oculus and all these devices that have helped us take the big leap. And I don't think we have to wait so much to see this closer to people. Maybe 3-4 years from now, we might see that this has become widespread. All these devices are going to become cheaper, more comfortable to use. And right now, the only gap is related to price. To give you specific data, the European Union 2 years ago started a project about investing in technological companies in order to train professionals and teachers within a 5-year span, because it was expected that in the coming years, 500,000 professionals dealing with all these extended reality technologies would be needed. Within this program, there were several pilot projects, and what they did for 2 years was to identify the needs, the skills needed among teachers, and to also learn what we needed to do to train them in order to use the same technology that they will use later on as teachers with their students. We have implemented this in a project with Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, Germany, and Spain. The results seem to come from 4 different planets. Estonia is at the top of the digital world. They're amazing. Their project, in just 6 months, they're already delivering courses. It's a creative school. It's a vocational creative school. They have music, they have workshops, they have mathematics, they have video games. It's a very complex and impressive center. They bought the Oculus Go, and within a month they had Oculus Rift, and now they're using incredible headsets because the impact and the acceptance has been so wide, so deep. Teachers were really embracing this technology, and students realized that the faster they worked on this, the more prepared they would be in the future for this reality within the labor market. This is a European project. There are several initiatives in which they're working at this moment. Also, the European Commission is concerned because they want Europe to lead something, maybe the 5th way, I don't know. But there are already companies with a very high profile in this sector. And within the VARA association, there's a company that really impresses me. Its name is Siberi. It's a company from Huelva, from the south of Spain. And they found that there was a real need within the welding sector. I think this is just really impressive. In China, there are 750,000 welders needed, and they're not qualified, they're not trained to do this job. And everything that they have around them is welded. What you need is to use a specific device with a certain head mask, face mask, in order to work on this, on certain materials, to connect the materials. And if the work is not properly done, you have to throw everything away. So what they have developed is a system with a device that really certifies you in all types of welding. This is a company from the south of Spain, and they have developed this unique technology. This is the only thing that they do. They've been certified in Asia. They're introducing this project in Japan. They're also in the United States, and they partnered with Siemens to train for the 240 welded parts within the new high-speed train that is going to be developed now. So what we're seeing is a high-tech company that allows to certify professionals within this specific sector in the world. I just wanted to add that this implies a change in the mindsets. We are living in an uncertain period where technology is forcing us to change every day faster. We have gone through different stages where you received some training and you had one single job for the whole duration of your professional life, but this has changed, and we need to be aware of this. We need to understand that everything is changing at the speed of light, and we need to unlearn in order to start learning, or else we won't be able to adapt to the changes that we are experiencing. There is another question that we have received through Twitter from Cecilia Lawa. She asks Marjorie, I think, would immersive technologies the tool to teach emotional intelligence beyond empathy? Well, anything that is related to emotional intelligence is true, that is dealt with artistic activities and topics, but the STEM is now as STEAM because they have added arts in the middle of this acronym, and these topics related to arts, to the arts and the music, are not only aimed at developing artistic knowledge, but they are also very important for the cognitive development, social development, and also the emotional intelligence, the development of the soft skills that we mentioned earlier, and this from a very early age. So do we think that virtual reality is the only way to achieve this? I don't believe so, but I do think that this is a great opportunity to reach children. And another question today. I haven't lost my passion yet. Just a quick thought. Something that is important both in the past and in the future is to live in the now, in the present. We are living an extraordinary moment where the smartphone has become completely a regular thing, but not so long ago we had these tiny telephones where we only saw green things on the screens. But now we're talking about virtual reality, and I think we see it as an unstoppable movement. But those who really know about virtual reality are the military from the United States. All the people who went to the Desert Storm campaign knew everything about this, about where they were going to go before they landed on their destination. This is very important. Video games are also extremely important. If we talk about interactive games, and also a video game that has been used that has to do with stumble on other places, with being very realistic, like in Assassin's Creed. And I think that video games and the military are the sectors that have developed the most the virtual reality, what we know as the virtual reality that has brought us here today, is just a minimal share of what virtual reality true is. Mr. Sutherland developed in 1964 a Damocles sword that forgive me, I lost the thread of my thoughts. Forgive me for that. But what I wanted to say is that the possibilities for developing virtual reality are generated through synthetic graphics that are merely created by computer generation. What we aimed for virtual reality is not what we have actually developed. But I wanted to say that the real virtual reality devices nowadays are very expensive nowadays, and barely anyone has access to them. You need very powerful computers, and we can see the great miracle of being able to see virtual realities through our smartphones, and I think that's a real miracle. So I just wanted to tell you this thought of mine, that we need to enjoy this passionate, this amazing moment that we're experiencing right now.
Sorry, I'll do English here. Following off a bit from that and sort of stuff that's been said before, one of my questions to the panel is, we're talking about education, is when it comes to making these experiences like VR, like AR, right now, those tools are exclusively made by the manufacturer of the headsets and by the makers of the phones. And so maybe part of the problem that you see is that, like, for example, if I was young, I would be interested in a certain type of thing in VR, and maybe that's not catered for right now. And it may also be the same for an older generation as well. So what you're seeing right now is you're seeing a lot of the stuff that suits a certain audience, but it's also created by that audience. So I'm wondering, have you thought about, for example, what other tools are available, or other systems or ways or approaches of for example, like open sourcing or like looking at the open source market to see where you can kind of give the tools to the users rather than here's a headset, enjoy it, you know, because that seems like the wrong way. I'd want to be able to craft my own reality rather than watch someone else's reality.
Thank you. ¿Quieres contestar alguno?
Yes. The answer
Okay.
is yes. Okay. Bueno, lo hago en español porque. Bien.
Well, I'll do it in Spanish, if you don't mind. Well, everything that has to do with content and content development is an activity that usually takes place in a classroom, so to speak, when you're going to do something manual. So, I started many years ago at high school, where we opened a car's engine. We changed the oil. We changed the different parts of the engine. They taught us how to create a book. There were workshops. Okay, so these workshops today, in a very simple way, with just one camera, well, you can show all the students to create their own activities and to enrich them and explain them among all of them. But there's a problem that I would like to highlight in terms of good practices. When a teacher's training is based on YouTube's tutorials and a manufacturer with an authoring tool and starts to play with some devices, the bad practices make that what he's trying to teach has no value. And between inverted commas, well, I have YouTube page. I'm not Victor Scorsese, okay? I have a blog, but I'm not a Cervantes. So today, the banalization of technology implies that anybody that is able to use some effects in the digital marketing world seems to be highly accepted. I won't speak about author tools, but there are tools that have emerged out of any logic development concept. So the 3D concept does not appear. An environment appears, and now I'm going to put a bird, and now a house. AutoCAD used to do that many years ago. So they don't even have the concept. So this is why I'm very stubborn, I know, but we have to educate to be able to do. A teacher is not an author of books. He can create unique experiences, and he can empathize. He can create a great engagement with students. This example that we've just seen, I'll show her. We played a game. Can I tell you? Yeah, it was a spectacular game. Yeah, please be brief, Carlos. Yeah, very brief. We went to a school, and we wanted to see how students react at the music classroom. Okay, it was a high school, and we went there. We recorded with a musician, a composer. He was a professional. Okay, in the music world, and the classroom was about evangelies. Okay, and we saw the lesson. We recorded it. We went to the studio. We saw that, and we said, what about creating an immersive experience so that, well, for the students that did not come to the classroom, when you see the video, you see that the ones in the first row are paying attention, the second one's a little bit less, and the one at the last row were playing with a cell phone. And it's music. It's not math. It's not physics. We said that we were going to record it, and we were going to put them with a unique observer, everybody in a circle around a camera. But the camera should be ignored. So we changed the storytelling. We changed the context. So tell us what you're going to do. Create the narrative from the beginning. Why is this created? Who was Evangelis? There was a script of a music piece, and they were playing with instruments. So that day, everybody came there. Even some people that couldn't play any instrument. So their score, well, that started to sound, and instead of being A, B, B, A, the structure, I mean, they just played a part of the score. It was about 2 minutes. That day, it lasted 15 minutes. They played the whole piece. the teacher was astonished. It was like, what has happened here? If I take the camera out, it's exactly the same, but when we had the camera there, we were able to know what was going on, and we were able to see that when it was over, I didn't stop recording. And students started to chat among each other. So you play piano, oh, that's right, that's great. They started to sing, they started to improvise. It was magic. That was a great storytelling. It was with a very small Samsung camera, but what we lived there was unique. And it let us take that experience to other schools to learn other didactic methods based on values, feelings, empathy, and that content can be created by any teacher. As Einstein used to say, we are not speaking about technology and knowledge, we are speaking about imagination. And what we need is imagination. Well, I think that with Einstein's quote and Ian's question, well, I think that this could be the perfect end for this afternoon. So tomorrow at 12 we will have Ian's workshop. At 7 p.m. we'll have the third workshop about art and creation. After that we'll have the Chagall's performance, an interactive and spectacular performance. And after that we'll have the experiences in the morning and the afternoon, both on this floor and on the fourth floor. And it's a unique chance to see them because it's the last day. So take it. Thank you very much, Carlos, Gonzalo, Marjorie, and Peter. It has been a great pleasure to have you here. Thank you.